That hurt.
All right, welcome to the Straight Red Card. Brett will have to do some editing there. We're here to talk about the roster, which I don't know, Brett. And we're joined by Will from MLS Moves. Will, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure being on your show. So we thought we'd throw out the welcome here, especially since we were rapping about it as we were leading up to the show on the phones, on the texts. So I thought, what the hell? I mean, you're you know quite a bit about especially all the MLS players, but we do too. So it's not like you're here for just your MLS specialty, but also because I think you often bring a different point of view. Not that different, but slight enough. Why not? Let's bring you on. Different face. Probably a nicer guy than we are. Where I am,
who it is.
Especially.
Yeah, I
Brett's
feel like
pretty nice.
I'm the nice guy of the group.
Brett's pretty nice too. I guess I'm the only asshole on here. All right. So Brett, how are we going to lead this off? You want to just go through goalkeeper and go down and talk about like who got, left off or?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well just go through the roster and then we'll just talk about the inclusions, the exclusions, how Derek has to eat crow, that type of stuff.
I do? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess
we'll figure out. Preaching since Camp Cupcake, there's no chance, zero chance that Luna gets included here.
I just didn't think so. I'm happy you did though.
Yeah, I really was. I had this slight little inkling of hope. I'm like, he was talking about his giant balls, so maybe.
Maybe that's a guy that Pochettino has a soft spot for.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but we also thought he had a soft spot for Brendan Aronson, but that didn't turn out to be true, did it?
We actually kind of predicted that he had a soft spot for Miljevic too.
Yeah, that didn't work out. Now, I did send you...
We're kind of jumping ahead of the subject.
I know, but I did send you a quote from Poch about the Aronson thing. So just so if you want to pull that up later on when we get there, that'd be a good thing. I guess
I got to pull up... I guess I should have done this before, but I guess I got to pull up the...
Well, this is all your fault for hanging out with your kids and being a good father, you dick.
I took my son and two of his friends to the fields and ran them ragged for a bit.
Good for you. Well, let's let Will start with the goalkeepers. You shocked, surprised, anything like tickle your? No?
Not really. I mean, the goalkeeping pool is kind of weak. We all know this. I don't know how you guys feel about Zach Steffen. I just think he had his chance to really take this run with it years ago, and he failed when he was in Europe, when he returned. And, he's okay with the Rapids. Schulte is in a weird spot. I think he's played pretty well with Columbus.
Not this season so far, but yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of bumpy.
3 games in right now. I mean, it happens.
3 games in. 3 games in right now. I mean, and also the Columbus is in a weird spot because they sold a bunch of their good players. But I don't know about you guys, but I was a little surprised to see maybe Zach Steffen over Matt Freese. I think he's been really good the last year and a half.
There were a lot of Freese advocates out there for sure on X, and but I think I settled. Brett and I were talking about this yesterday, and I said, I'm not even going to be surprised if Zach Steffen makes this team. I'm just not going to be surprised by it because he showered Steffen with praise. So, but then again, that didn't work out for Aronson. Just saying, but it just seemed like I said I just wasn't going to be surprised if it happened. And like this was the least interesting of the positions because it's Matt Turner starting regardless.
Well, I think as we described, once Turner's on the roster, it's spitball. I mean, it's anybody's game.
Right.
As far as who Poch might call him. Because we sat there and we're like, well, Poch called coaching in for a couple of the windows. He's called in, obviously, Schulte, and he's called in Steffen recently with Camp Cupcake.
But then Horvath had 2 really good games in a row, and he's now the starter again because there's an injury. So, I mean, hard to say, but again, no shockers, I don't think, except for maybe Zach Steffen would be surprising for others. And then there's this huge crew of Matt Freese people who are like, when does Matt Freese get a shot out? So,
well, I mean, the big question right there is Steffen or Schulte, are they better at this point than Horvath is? Make that argument one way or another. But the big question is Schulte and Steffen getting the benefit of recency bias?
You mean
they were just in front of Poch a couple of months or like 2 months ago.
January.
Yeah, so
I don't know. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I think so. And one other player that I want to mention who is, I mean, the coach he's playing for doesn't really do him any favors, but I think a lot of people are really high on Chris Brady. Now, he's only 21. I think he's really good, got a lot of talent. I actually feel better about him. I know Brett loves that shout out. I actually feel a lot better about him than Gaga at this point, which who would have thought that? You know, Gaga Slanina has kind of just been thrown to the wayside, not really became the player we thought he would be. He's only 20, 21, but he's on loan army with Chelsea, and it's just not really worked out. But Chris Brady, I'm really high on him. I'm really keeping an eye on him. Maybe he would be someone that you would just give a third option, let him get introduced and like just kind of get into the realm of the USMNT and see like maybe he could be a guy in the future. But yeah, I mean, this is just kind of like you said, default picks. I mean, Stefan maybe a little bit of surprise, but I just don't think Schulte or Stefan are really they're not going to challenge Turner for the spot.
Yeah, they're not going to play, right?
No.
Unless Stefan has a left testicle injury. So
real quickly, just to go off the whole Gaga and Brady thing, real quick. With Gaga, I mean, even while he was at Chicago, his distribution was poor, and that's what was glaring. And some of his decision making was poor, but he was a solid enough shot stopper, and he was not Chicago's problem. There's a lot of promise there. He just has to grow and develop, and he has to learn from his mistakes. His time at Eupen was lackluster in the sense that they lost a lot, but he got tried a lot.
yeah,
And then his time at is it Burnley, right? Was it Burnley or Barnsley?
Barnsley
Was not great. There's some decent performances earlier on, but then as the season would progress and he lost the starting spot, it was clear. I mean, he needs work as distribution. Absolutely needs work on that.
And then he got the pinky injury.
Yeah.
Well, also too, real quick on him is he's like in League One right now. Is he at Leighton or who's he on loan with right now? Gaga.
He's back at Chelsea.
Is he back at Chelsea? The most important thing is he's got to be playing games. He's 20, 21 years old. He's got to get some experience. Honestly, it makes you wonder if he should just stay in MLS for a couple years and see what happened, just because it really hasn't panned out. So I guess maybe we're looking at like Chris Brady, like it's the alternate universe, like maybe what would happen with Gaga if he'd stayed. But I'm really high on Brady. I like him. I think right now I'm higher on him than Slanina, but we'll see. I mean, it's still very early, but I really do like Chris Brady quite a bit.
I'll say one thing is while Gaga was playing for Chicago and Brady was over at Madison, I think it was Friedel. Somebody had posted a quote from Friedel, I think it was, that talked about how he saw there was a higher ceiling with Brady than there was with Gaga. So
okay, well,
I
mean, if you're going to trust somebody on a goalkeeper, why not Brad Friedel? I wouldn't trust Brad Friedel on outfield players to save my life. So, but outside of that, he's really good with picking goalkeeper talent. All right, let's move off to goalkeepers. That's enough. This is the most meaningless position because it's really, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And then here, no MLS players, which, we had kind of predicted. And I think that maybe it's a little thinner than we thought. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But I think we got that right on our last pick, that it would be Marlon Fossey, Chris Richards, and Joe Scally, who's, if he does play, is going to play right center back, right? So not right wing, not right back.
We didn't have Fossey in the defenders list, though.
I thought we replacement. Right. Because we were actually doing an accurate depiction of what Poch is going to play, which is a back 3/back 5, like he has done so far every time. So it's not going to be a traditional 4-3-3. I mean, unless you got another argument for it, Will, but I mean,
no, I don't. Now he did have one MLS. It's he's very forgettable, Tim Ream, because he's very old.
That's true.
And,
sorry.
Yeah. And the weird thing is Tim Ream's been playing left back for Charlotte FC, which he's 38, and the attacking talent in MLS is pretty good. So he's kind of left there on an island. He really doesn't have a chance at this point. I'm a little confused by that. And look, I don't dislike Tim Ream. I like him. I think he's important for what we needed at the time. But I can't remember if it was maybe you, Derek, maybe it was Adam Turner I told this to. If Tim Ream is still a key piece, even a year before the 2026 World Cup, something is severely wrong. We need somebody else to take the mantle and be a leader. I know that's why they want him. But, man, if he's – I mean, do you guys think he's starting in 2026 as of right now?
Well, no, something is severely wrong. That's why he's there. It's
So,
not that
well,
it's going to be. It is. Like I think leadership role right now is. I mean, I think Adams, if he's healthy enough and he stays there, will take that role eventually. As far as leading the back line, that's got to be somebody else in 2026.
So I'll say, as of last show, Derek and I have an argument / bet going on right now for the upcoming match on the 20th. As far as our back three is concerned, because we assume that they're still playing in the attack back three, in the defense back five.
Yep.
I'm still saying that Scally is going to start at the quote unquote right center back / right back role. And then you have McKenzie and Richards. And Derek is thinking that Richards is going to play the right role and you're going to have Ream starting at left. And either could happen. So I'm sitting here saying we're at a point now where I think we may not see Ream as a starter in this match.
The only reason I really think that, more than anything else, Brett, is also his connection with Jedi.
Sure.
Who will be playing left wing back for sure.
That shit's got to change though too, so we can't just.
I agree. So I do see that there could be a very big possibility that we see 3 actual real center backs playing center back in those 3 spots, and then you got Jedi and Musa playing the wing back spots. So, yeah, all right. Yeah,
well,
we'll see.
I was gonna ask you guys too, real quick. I saw a lot of people buzzing about Des not being on the roster. People were giving a hard time about that. I agree.
You just got like 21 minutes or whatever it was.
He
People complain to complain.
wasn't on the 60 even.
Yeah.
How he can't be on the roster. It's like this is a technical thing too. He's not going to be on there. Haji Wright. I saw people bitching about that. Well, Haji Wright wasn't on the 60 because he wasn't healthy when the 60 was created. And Des wasn't healthy when the 60 was created. What the hell do you want to do? That's the rules. Those are the rules of this tournament. You provide a healthy 60, and there were people actually on that 60 who were injured. Tolkien,
I think even Jimmy's show talked about like Haji Wright as an option.
Yeah.
And it's almost like people forget that there's a preliminary roster.
Right. And there are rules.
Well, he's healthy now. We can call him up, right? No, there's not. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so I think,
I will say come Gold Cup, as long as, Des remains healthy and everything like that, and he's back to his, former self, it's going to be interesting to see what Poch does with Dest.
And by the way, even if Ream doesn't play that left center back spot, I wouldn't be shocked if Trusty does, because Trusty played that for Sheffield United for ages, right?
Possible.
So that wouldn't surprise me either. And then again, Scally is out.
I guess
depends how much Poch loves Scally.
You got a little bit of leeway here because you literally can just throw in any other center back besides Scally.
Right.
like if Scally starts, I win. If Scally doesn't start, Derek wins.
Correct. That's how it's going to work.
You played the odds. I'm like the Wheel of Fortune. Price is Right. I'm like 1,200, and Derek comes in and goes 1,201.
Yeah. Do you guys either find it odd that Musa wasn't listed as a defender? Is that aesthetics more than anything else, since he's going to be playing the right wing back spot he played last time, while Scally holds, if Scally plays, and doesn't move an inch forward the whole game? Because
it's the same argument with Luna and Reyna at this point, because they're the most logical replacements for Pulisic and Weah, and yet they're listed as midfielders.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. Maybe we're like, okay, you can either get really general, and this is very general, so I guess there's no aesthetics. If you get too specific about what everybody's playing, then you're kind of giving away what you're going to do, I think.
Yeah.
In a sense, right? So you just list Musa as a forward and just live with it, I guess. Hey, he's a forward. Okay, well, why is he playing in a back 5 on defense? That's kind of weird. Never seen a forward play right wing back defense.
Very fluid. Very fluid.
Such a very fluid system. But yeah, someday Pete and I are going to have this conversation out, and we're going to work it out.
He had a moment. Go ahead and let's keep talking, guys, about the defense.
Well, scroll down to the midfielders then.
Okay,
I think we're ready. We're done with the defenders, I think. We're 14 minutes in as well. Midfielders. Well, the only shocker here is Luna, and a happy shocker. I'm happy. I think a lot of people out there are happy about this. People who are Aronson fans, either Brendan or Paxton, might not be happy, but let's be really fair about what kind of position Paxton Aronson's been playing at Utrecht. He's been playing a box-to-box, Paxton Aronson. So not really, hasn't played any traditional CAM role for a long time for anybody. And so it's not surprising he gets left out in that sense, because it seems to me, and Poch said this in a news conference, he's looking for a very specific player to play that CAM role. And that's why Luna made it. And Brendan Aronson, as we've said on this show for the last, a couple weeks, maybe 3, has been total shite for Leeds. And I'm sorry. I think Poch watched those games too and went, look, they're better when he's off the field than when he's on it. So,
I agree. I was talking to Adam about this when Poch got hired, about players who really underwhelm when they play for the national team, like just don't do shit. And you're expecting these guys to perform. And I think that Aronson is a guy that you really need to knock some heads with and like make a statement like, hey, you're not getting called up when you play like shit. You're not going to get an automatic call up. Those days are long gone. Like you got to perform with your team or you're not going to get a call up. And I'm really excited about Luna because I think Luna's good. I think he's really talented. He's got a lot of potential, and hopefully he gets a move sooner than later to a better league, and we can see how much better he maybe not like in the summer, but maybe at the end of the year he progresses and keeps doing well. But I hope to see what he can turn out to be. I think he's too good to be an MLS lifer personally. I think Diego Luna has a lot of potential. And I was shocked too. I've been pounding the table for Luna to get a call up because I think he has a lot of potential. He can look really good. And I want to see him with this A team, not Camp Cupcake. I want to see what he can do if he gets some time and see what he can do with a little bit more talent around him.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the only issue with Luna at this point is that he did sign the U22 contract, and he's there until 2028, which means that, yes, he can go earlier than that, but it's going to have to be a hefty bid.
Yeah, because
so
RSL...
Unless he just balls out for the next year, it's not going to be January. It's probably going to be the summer of 2026, quite frankly, before there's even a consideration.
Yeah, for sure, because they're going to be asking for ridiculous money up until the contract gets closer to ending. And if they can't get him to re-sign, then they're going to have to start selling. But they really want to start the conversations before they already know Luna's not going to re-sign. So somewhere around 2026, as you said, is when that conversation will start.
So Derek, here's the comment of Pete for you.
I wonder how much we'll see Jedi Robinson play a similar role as we saw him play against Jamaica, where he'll tuck into central midfield in certain phases and bomb wide in others, while Scally mostly stays at home. I'm not... Listen, I love Pete. This was not just in the Jamaica game. I'm sorry. There's more than one game where that happened. And what will it look like with Dest back later? Well, it'll change for sure. Maybe. Well, it'll change in the sense that it's now Musa versus Dest.
Exactly. That's
right wing back role.
If this continues to work the way that it worked, especially against Jamaica, I wouldn't be surprised if Dest comes back and he's going to be vying for a more offensive option.
And he's better in the final third, which Musa really doesn't provide anything in the finals, but Musa might be a better defender.
But it's also not to say even that, as we've discussed already, whether or not Scally will be our third center back option come 2026. We may have other center backs that displace him at that point, but I don't think it's going to be Dest if we continue this route.
Yes. And then he says, "We'll go back. I didn't finish it.
I closed it out.
Oh shit!
No worries.
Anyhow, we love you, Pete. I get it.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery what the second part is.
Yeah. Go to Pete's Twitter handle at 11 Yanks or is it at Yanks 11? I don't know. And see what the last part of that tweet said.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you guys one thing too about another player I thought maybe could have been consideration MLS wise, because they're obviously this wasn't going to be an MLS heavy roster, but one guy that I thought maybe could have got a call up, maybe over Luna, maybe even over Reyna. I know it sounds crazy, but Reyna, he hasn't really done much in a while. Gutierrez.
There it is. The news coming.
Yeah.
Man, you and Brett need to get a room.
He's been freaking stellar. 2 out of 3 games because he didn't get to play that middle game, but
he's been a stud.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's working really good too. His confidence is beaming.
But he would have needed to tickle Poch's testes in that January camp in order to get
Agreed.
a look, and that didn't happen. So Diego Luna not only has big balls, but he did tickle Poch's testicles. So that's why he's there more than anything else, and he's an actual 10, which is what he was looking for. Which Paxton Aronson has played before for our youth teams, but never for a pro team, and then Brendan Aronson's really not a 10 in my opinion. I mean, if he is, he's the most lackluster, non-assist providing 10 that's ever played the game before.
Like they keep playing him as a 10. He's not a 10. I'm like, well, that's how Brendan Aronson sees himself. That's how Lee sees him, and that's how Poch sees him. So he's either got to sink or swim at this point. But it's funny because
he's so unproductive at there though for Leeds.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing 10 for Leeds, where are all your assists? Where the hell are all your goals this season?
Yeah.
I mean, they're few and far between for the amount of minutes he's played this season.
Last thing I'm going to say real quick, because I did see the private chat there, Will. Based off of Camp Cupcake performances, as much as I would like to say I'd like to have Guti back, especially with how well he's playing right now, just on Camp Cupcake, I think Caden Clark played a lot better than Guti did.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And that's the one thing I'll say too, is it was like unfortunate because this was the off season for MLS, but now we see the season picking up. He's playing well. Maybe if that Camp Cupcake was somehow now instead of 2 months ago, maybe it'd be a little different. He would have performed a little better. Yeah. No, but I agree. Before I let you guys go, before I leave, I'll say that the strikers, Brian White, real quick. I just want to touch on that, because that's next. I am surprised about Brian White because he hasn't really done much this season. And I saw Derek talking to a guy on Twitter about, well, he's one of the most consistent goal scorers in MLS last couple years.
Last couple years, yeah.
Yeah, last couple years. Yeah, not really this season, even though the team has been playing really well this year. It's kind of an indictment on the American talent in MLS staying when they reach a certain point. They just don't stay. If they're good, they leave. Like they're a goal scoring American is not staying in MLS. So it's very slim pickings when it comes to domestic strikers.
If you're a championship team, you don't go after Duncan McGuire or whatever. You go after Brian White. He scored 36 goals from the 2024, 2023, and 2024 season. And I get it. He's older.
There you go. I was going to say you go for Duncan McGuire because he's about 8 years younger.
Yeah, I get it. But Brian White scores. So that's who you pick up. So sorry, you got to go, Will. Sorry, this went on longer.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me on. Hopefully I'll be on again in the future. And good luck. Appreciate everything you guys do.
See you, man.
No problem.
See ya.
Take care, man. All right, let's go back to midfielders.
Yeah.
Because Reyna, a lot of bitching and moaning, including from our friend Max Bretos, about Reyna shouldn't have made the team. I'm like, why? Has Reyna, despite all his injuries and all his issues with Dortmund, ever come to U.S. camp in the recent years and been disappointing and played like shit? No.
So here's the Poch said. This is everything somebody bitched about Reyna. One, I would say this is Poch's first opportunity to evaluate him in the camp. He's gonna get a call up, whether it's this one or it's the summer. But Poch says we decided to call him up because it's the only opportunity we have now. For us, he's a great player. He then cites he can't call him up in the summer because of the FIFA Club World Cup. Now I'll say this much: he's on the chopping block. He's gonna get sold this summer.
Yes.
If he's not sold by Club World Cup, I don't know if he'll actually be on that Club World Cup roster.
Right.
Why? Why would you even bother at that point?
I mean,
unless you want to market him a little bit more, but
Poch's, I guess, not reading the writing on the wall.
I would wager he's just looking at it going, well, yeah, if he's going to get a move, he's going to get a move, but I got to play the game like he's not going to move. So
right.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. But either way, listen, people are like, oh, well, Gio barely plays for Dortmund. You can't really say that. Since he's been back from injury, he's started 4 games.
So I had this conversation with another guy as well. He's averaged 27 minutes between a game for all 20 of his games. That's Champions League and League.
Right.
Now, saying that, he's also started 4 games. So if you consider that, there's a lot of games that he's getting like 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes.
Yep.
but that's better than nothing at all.
Right.
I mean, there was a time in our life where we were sitting there like, we have a player getting average 27 minutes at Dortmund. I mean,
Yeah.
mind you, times have changed, of course. Now we're like,
Yes.
Dortmund, whatever, but it's still he's still playing in a top league. So
And
it's
Champions
silly.
League ball. So it's
Yeah.
not like he's to say he doesn't play is not exactly, as Brett said, 27 minutes a game over his time since being back from injury.
Mhm.
It's not exactly, spank at 5-minute time. This is like considerable minutes on average. So either way, what I told Max was, when's he ever sucked for us? He hasn't.
Oh my God, I had this. Oh man, I had this one conversation with a guy, and he was like, "Why are we calling up a guy who hasn't had a goal or an assist in his last 5 games?" Talking about U.S. men's national team games.
5?
I did this right. I read that. I go,
5?
Do you mean why didn't he score a goal or get an assist in the pre-Copa and Copa matches?
What the fuck?
The games where Greg played him as a deep lying center midfielder. Is that what we're saying here? Because if you go back to the previous 4 games before Copa, he had 2 goals and 2 assists, all in Nations League.
And he saved our ass.
Yeah.
With Haji. Yeah.
It was a silly argument to make, and it's a weird place to stop the last 5 games. Like that was against Brazil or Uruguay, Panama. Who were the other 2? In Bolivia, I guess. And then
You're asking the wrong guy. Yeah.
It was Uruguay again, wasn't it?
Might have been.
Maybe. Either way, it was a silly argument to make because Greg played him completely out of position in a spot that was. You made an argument for it at the time, saying, "Well, this is maybe what he wanted from him," but it's not a position that he's ever played. So,
yeah, they certainly were trying something different, playing him, in that sort of Pirlo role, right?
Yeah.
Just make sure he has the ball more than everybody else on the field. And I understood what he was trying to do, Greg.
Yeah.
It didn't work, but I understood the concept of it. And I wasn't 100% against the concept, trying the concept.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it didn't work out. Pochettino and Brendan Aronson. Brendan is a player we know very well, but we decided to bring another in his place, like Gio Reyna, who is joining us for the first time. Then there's Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Diego Luna. I think too many players for one position. Yeah. So he's really talking about that double 10 role, although he did say one position.
See, and that's the other thing too. But he could be looking at it being like Weah is going to be again up there and playing more of an out wide at times, and you have Musa running down the right hand side in the attack.
I'm not even sure.
He's looking at that one role, that quote unquote 10, if you will.
I'd love to see Poch's actual on the whiteboard roster lineup, because what the hell is he doing? Like, what is that formation that he's playing? Is there not really one, or are there just roles and they're all interchangeable? So, and then he says about Brendan, sometimes it's not about a player having to improve, although Brendan needs to improve something. Yeah, because his contributions in the final third are dismal. It's just about numbers. I think we have too many players for only one position. He says one position. And this was a possibility to provide balance. When you have 23 players to call in a competition for 2 games in a short space of time, balance is important. It's only really 20 players because you have 3 goalkeepers. Of course, we talk about Brendan, but we can talk about many other players. And we are disappointed we cannot call all of them. In our mind, Brendan is still a player that we consider so highly, but we'll have to wait until the next one. Yeah. And we'll see how Diego Luna does here. And whether or not, he also considers Luna a replacement for Weah or Pulisic or, McKennie.
Well, if we don't consider any of those players replacements for Weah, then Weah's all by himself. There's no replacement for him.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a Gio. It's got to be a Luna. It's got to be it could have been a Brendan Aronson that could replace either him or Pulisic. I mean, or Musa for that matter, for the most part. Well, Brendan could substitute for Musa if he needed to, but the other one's not so much.
So he considers Pulisic a 10. He considers
probably on the board. He probably lists him as the 10.
And a McKennie a 10, even though they play really different positions on the field. Those were his double 10s instead of Weah.
No. I think McKinney is going to be. Well, he did mention McKinney for that one role. I think McKinney's going to be playing that box to box 8.
Yeah,
more so than anything.
So I'm really just confused by how he's explaining it, and that's why I'd love to be in a room with him and have him get on a whiteboard and explain to me why he considers McKennie a 10 and Pulisic a 10, but Weah not a 10.
Yeah,
more of a winger who's playing alongside a right wing back. But I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I'm confused by that.
Again, looking at the midfield, though, you're looking at Adams, you're looking at Tessman, you're looking at Cardoso as potential three players vying for that 6 role, and then you have Cardoso, and you have McKinney, and then potentially Luna and potentially Reyna vying for that 8 role, and then also competing for the 10s, if you will. So I mean, it's a pretty telling setup that we got going here, quite frankly.
Yeah.
How the verbiage that he's using, they're all vying for that one role, but that's not that one role. It isn't. Players that are going to be playing, you're going to be you have to substitute way out at some point, I imagine.
You can't use McKennie and Pulisic in the same sentence and say there's one role because Pulisic and McKennie are both going to be on the pitch. Start the game. That's 2 roles already. So, just a little confused by the math there.
The way I look at it, it's Tyler and Tessman. It's Cardoso and McKinney, and it's Luna and Reyna. Those are the pairings that are going to be vying for spots. And I think Luna and Reyna are going to be the obvious backups, quite frankly, to the Pulisic and Weah.
And then we get to forwards. And I was of the belief there would be one MLS center forward. There are now 2.
Some people were contemplating that there'd be no extra forwards and we just bring in another player somewhere else on the pitch. Because we always have Weah to fall back on.
Oh, by the way, on the midfield, the guys that really got left out of this conversation are Busio and Aiden Morris, who, by the way, had a spectacular game today for Middlesbrough.
I think Aiden Morris is on the outside looking in with Tessman and Cardoso really stepping in.
I agree, but Aiden Morris got an assist today and Middlesbrough won. And he played a great 90 minutes. So
it's just getting congested is the problem.
It's not like what Alanis Morissette said. It's not ironic. It's just coincidence, right?
It's unfortunate.
That he didn't get called up on the day. He didn't get called up. He played really well. Probably his best game so far for Middlesbrough since coming back from injury.
This was like that moment where Brendan was left off the roster, and he played incredibly well that weekend. And then somebody got injured and he got brought in for Copa, I think it was.
Yeah, we saw this when he was in Germany, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't get called up. And all of a sudden, for the rest of the season, we saw Dark Brendan. And then he goes back to Leeds, and we continue to see Dark Brendan for the first half of the season. We now got to this portion of the season, and Dark Brendan is gone. I don't know where that guy went.
Early.
Yeah, Dark Brendan went on vacation. And like I said, he needs to have a phone call with Satan sometime soon. Because that needs to come back. Whatever I've been watching, and I watch all the Leeds games, as you well know, very disappointing. Just game after game after game after game now. And I just doesn't contribute on the offensive end. So, forwards, go ahead. Go ahead.
So talk about forwards. Obviously, you have Agyemang, you have Musa, Pulisic, Sargent, Weah, and White. You were talking about the forwards position before we got sidetracked with midfields again.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised Agyemang and White both got included at the expense of Zendejas.
Yes,
this was the biggest snub in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you can complain about Vasquez if you're a Vasquez fan.
Oh, sure.
But
I feel like you're kind of splitting hairs between White, Vasquez, and Agyemang as a backup at this point.
I mean, I think you could have just taken White, or you could have just taken Agyemang and could have one or the other and included Zendejas. I mean, that's a real kick in the balls for Zendejas, who's just been outright great. A lot of people say, well, Liga MX isn't what it used to be. Okay, big deal. So he scores there. He competes there. He's one of the best players on his team. Who cares? Well, I don't know. I'm still of the view that he earned a spot here.
But we've substituted him with other MLSers who aren't standing out. I mean, you can look at Liga MX and say, well, it's a shadow of what it used to be, or maybe it's not as good as it used to be. Let me rephrase that. But I mean, MLS is still struggle busing against them at times.
Yep.
And we have 2 strikers on here that you're sitting there going like,
what have they done this season
okay,
and lately?
I guess.
I mean, yeah, okay.
And Patrick got his brace in 2 games, and that's again recency bias, quite frankly. But,
yeah. There was this one guy who was like, there still should never be any MLS center forwards on this team ever from here going forward. I'm like, okay, well, name who you want. And he's like, well, what about Poch? No, injured. Okay, what about that one guy that plays at Belgium? Are you talking about Zahir Al-Islam? Yes. Okay, he just got back from injury. No, didn't even play last game. Who else? Who else do you want to talk about? Because we're really down, unless you're like a guy who loves Austrian soccer. You love Maurice Malone. You know, that's digging pretty goddamn deep.
I was going to mention the Columbus kid that scored a shit ton of goals for the U20s, but
no, I mean, I don't think we had any chance but go to Vasquez or White or Agyemang for one of those spots. One of them. One, not 2. I disagree with the 2 part.
So the argument you could make, if you want to make this argument, I agree. There's going to be one or the other. I didn't imagine it was ever going to be 2. But the argument you could make would say, we'll bring Zendejas in, and then you have Way as the backup to Sargent if need be. That's your fault too.
Right.
But the problem there is that obviously if Sargent has to leave, like let's say at the 70th minute or whatever, Way has been on the pitch for 70 minutes already.
Yeah, then you put in Brian White.
Yeah. Well, that was the talking point was if you don't bring in an MLS striker.
You have to. You just had to.
Well, I agree completely. But
right.
There were some people, and I think Pete had it where there was only Sargent as the only striker, and he brought in another player. I think other people had that too.
Right. Dominic Downs, by the way, was brought up in that discussion. Dominic Downs having surgery on his hand. Now, would a hand injury stop me from playing soccer? No. But maybe it's a really serious hand injury. I don't know. It better be, because I just take that shit up and go out and play, frankly.
Yep. Well, the good news with this roster, because quite frankly, the roster, just like under late Berhalter, is it writes itself. For the most part. Yeah, a couple players you can shuffle about, but for the most part, it writes itself. And actually, the starting 11 at this point, it writes itself.
Somebody said Cole Campbell. And I'm like, Cole Campbell doesn't play center forward. He's a winger. He's an outright winger, not a center forward.
That's the problem when people look at teams that play 4-3-3 and they just see forward.
Yes.
And he was listed in the preliminary as a forward.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, well, let's call up Cole Campbell. Well, he plays out wide right.
There's a lot of nuance on here that people just they don't seem to be paying attention to. Sure. So, Cole Campbell is not going to play center forward. He's not a center forward. Yes, we're missing Balogun. Yes, we're missing Pepe. So we are down to the nubs when it comes to center forwards. Outside of Sargent. Sargent's the only guy out there that's a guaranteed spot right now because of the way he's playing for Norwich. Everything after that is nub city. Brian White played great in 2003 and 2024, and 23. I mean, they've only played 3 games. So what am I supposed to judge Brian White this season already? I mean, I can't do that. The guy scored 36 goals in 2 seasons. And we brought this up on the show many times because I always would bring the list of American MLS contributors. And the guy on there, week after week after week after week, was Brian fucking White. Sorry, assists and goals. So say what you will about Brian White. Yes, is he old? Yeah, he's getting up there. Does he play for MLS? Yes, he does. That would have been my one pick. He's got a nose for goal. He's kind of like our guy from San Jose all those years.
Wondolowski.
He's a Wondolowski from today, right? Whereas Agyemang's just a young kid who's big, strong, and tall and athletic.
Is he the next Zardes for the U.S. men's national team?
No, he's too big to be a Zardes.
I'm just saying style of player. where he'll score him less goals and he'll
Score
come
off
in and be relatively serviceable here and there.
score off his nutsack.
Maybe.
Hey, I'll take it wherever.
Yeah, I would take it every day. Yeah.
Off his forehead, off the fucking post. Bing bong.
I don't need kids. Give me those goals.
Oh man. All right. That's all we got for you now, right? We're done.
Yeah.
All right. We went through it all. Those are our thoughts of the roster. Either way, I wouldn't panic too much. Okay. We got 2 MLS guys at center forward. They're gonna get 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're thrown on with Sargent if we need a goal late. Again,
Yep.
Let's hope that's not the case. What I'm really more interested in seeing is how all of this brews together with Adams being healthy, with Reyna and being healthy, with McKennie out there and Tessman and Pulisic and Weah. Like there's a whole lot of chemistry that could happen there throughout the game as players brought in, players come off. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, nothing to really worry about. No, I don't think that Poch is bowing to MLS in any way. This is just what he wants to do, because there are other easier players to come on and bring on that we usually do, which is usually at center back. You pick them MLS center back and just throw them on the team, right? Well, he didn't do that.
That's honestly a big surprise role right there. But yeah, guys, make sure you go down there, hit that like, subscribe, and make sure you leave a comment down below. Write who's your biggest snub and who's your biggest surprise inclusion.
Yep, do all that, and we will be back on Thursday to cover this even more extensively and, talk about your feedback. All right, until then, have a great night. We'll be back on Thursday. This has been the Straight Ray Card.
That hurt.